Hi guys, are you annoyed with lens flare affecting your landscape photos? In this video, we'll show you how to quickly and effectively eliminate the lens flares. On the internet you can find different tips on how to eliminate the lens flare in landscape photography. Why? Because lens flares simply don't belong in landscape photography. They reduce contrast, create color shifts, and produce multiple color artifacts. Just awful. But how do you get rid of them? Some of the methods you find are completely ineffective. Others are a bit bizarre and also ineffective, while others are overly complicated. What if we told you that we have a simple and 100% effective method for eliminating flares when shooting against the sun? And by the way, be sure to stay until the end of today's video, where we will also share a bonus, a simple method for handling your capture data in post-processing. So hang tight for it. Lens flares, a big issue in landscape photography, especially if you like shooting against the sun. While in some types of photography lens flares are welcome or even artificially added during editing, like in wedding or portrait photography, they have no place in landscape photography. You might ask why? The answer is simple. When you look into the sunlight with your own eyes, do you see flares around the sun or in the landscape? You don't. So why should they be in landscape photography? There are essentially two types of lens flares. The first type is easily visible directly on the camera's display. These are differently sized color spots that appear around the sun, in the sunbeams, and partially in the landscape. Most photographers notice these flares directly on the camera's display. They hope to somehow remove these flares in Photoshop. But there is a second type of flare, much more dangerous. What makes them dangerous? They aren't visible on the camera's display. As you look at the sun, then back at the display, then at the sun again, you will not notice these flares. Even if you avoid looking directly at the sun and use an additional sunshade on the display or viewfinder, these flares would remain invisible. They often cover relatively large areas in the image, typically appearing along the bottom edge of the photo. They are defined by a significant color shift, loss of contrast, and color artifacts. These sneaky flares are only revealed when you open the photo in an editor. And by then it's too late. Not even Photoshop can work miracles. Okay, we've talked more than enough, so we know what types of flare exist. But how do we get rid of them? Easily and quickly. Let's take a look. The most common advice is to use a lens hood. But with wide-angle lenses, the hood is so shallow that it has almost no effect. So that's not the solution. But the approach for eliminating lens flares directly in the field is surprisingly simple. The principle is that you photograph the same scene twice. First, you photograph the scene with the sun and flares, and then you photograph the same scene again, this time covering the sun with your fingers. In post-processing, you can easily combine the two images and eliminate the flares. Let's demonstrate this practically. Extend your hand as far as possible in front of the lens and ideally cover only the sun. Don't let your fingers intrude into the landscape. This is very important and you must be careful about it. That's quite easy, right? Just take two photos. Great. But What if you are shooting a panoramic photo? Does it have any specifics? If you answered yes, you are correct. We already know that we need to take two sets of photos directly against the light with the sun in the frame. But don't forget to take anti-flare shots for the frames right next to the sun, because the sun can still cause flares in the shot even if it's not directly in the frame. And how do we do it practically? As soon as you approach the sun with your lens, place your hand in the top right or top left corner, just to create a block between the sun and the lens. But of course, don't forget to take a shot without your hand as well. I start on the left, completely away from the sun, so I don't worry about flares. But as I get closer to the sun, I first take a shot without my hand and then put my hand in the top right corner. Then I shoot directly into the sun, and then I move the lens away from the sun, and I must take one shot without my hand and another with my hand in the top left corner. By the way, if you are not sure how to approach panoramic photos, check out our videos specifically about this topic. The link is right below the video. Great! But what if we are doing a multi-row panorama? Does it have its own rules? Yes, it does. And if we take anti-flare shots in the upper row, we need to do the same in lower rows. Again, around the sun and in the shot directly into the sun. The difference here is that in the lower rows, the hand will be visible in the landscape. We start with the upper row, the procedure we already know. We recompose to the lower row and continue just as we did with the upper row. Only this time, the hand appears in the landscape. And the most difficult scenario for last, a multi-row panorama is exposure bracketing. In this case, the procedure doesn't differ from the previous ones, except we need to take anti-flare shots for each set of exposure bracketing. So, if we are shooting a 3-step bracketing, we first take 3 photos with flares, without the hand, and before moving the lens, we take 3 photos with the hand. So one last time, we repeat the previous steps, but don't forget to do anti-flare on all photos within the exposure bracketing. So the technique for eliminating flares in the field is fundamentally simple. It's only when strong winds are blowing or when using very long exposure times that it becomes a challenge to keep the shading hand in the correct position in the front of the lens. Have you ever tried this approach? How did it go? We would be glad if you could share your experiences in the comments. Next up is the bonus we mentioned, a tutorial on how to process the capture data using software. So friends, I will say goodbye and turn it over to Martin, who will show you how to handle the photos in Photoshop.
Let's begin by stacking 2 images. One with an anti-reflective shot where a hand is covering the sun, and the normal shot. Our goal is to remove the hand. We'll start carefully by masking the sun from the normal image to fill the area covered by the hand in the anti-reflective shot. Using a brush, press B. With adjustable size and opacity, we'll carefully reveal the sun, ensuring that we don't introduce any unwanted artifacts in the surrounding landscape. Try not to touch the mountains. Okay, it looks good. So we are done. The sun is seamlessly masked in and the image looks clean and natural.
By the way, have you heard that you can join us on our exclusive photography expeditions to Lofoten Islands? If you want to know more, check the link below.